Hey everybody, this is Ricky Grove. I'm here for the Completely Machinima podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with my pals Tracy, Phil, and Damien. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We're going to be talking about our Machinima news this week. And why don't we start with you, Tracy? You have a nice long raft of interesting news for Machinima filmmakers.
Oh, I've only got three areas that I want to talk about, actually. Firstly, a bit of an update on contests. These are things that have happened, and one thing that's kind of on now as we go to air. Firstly, Nvidia have announced the Omniverse Machinima Contest results. They did that at SIGGRAPH, actually as part of a bigger talk. So it's a little bit lost in the recording that they then posted. What they mentioned was that they received dozens of entries, and decisions that they made in picking the winners focused on the technical challenges overcome by those that they selected. And then they put them on the Omniverse gallery page, where you can find the links to the films themselves. They're definitely worth watching. The winner was Simon Lavit, and runners-up were Nicklas, Lotz, and Ted Saguindel. And we'll put a link in the showreel on the link to the showreel on the show notes, and also to the Omniverse gallery itself. Damien, I think you have a bit of an update on that one too, don't you?
Well, I was actually going to enter the contest, but unfortunately COVID happened, so it got me. It finally got me, and I just couldn't enter the contest. So I was kind of disappointed with that. But yeah, the team from Nvidia, they sent me some of the results to have a look at, and it's a very impressive work there. We're going to be talking to them at some point. We haven't quite worked that out yet. And as just a little, just for any of our listeners, if you have any questions about Omniverse, send them in, and then I can ask them when I do the interview. So if you want to have anything about what's coming, or
good idea.
And, you know, if you've got any questions about Omniverse, just send them in, and then I'll include that in the interview.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
I've definitely got questions.
Yeah.
It seems like Omniverse with SIGGRAPH, which was just closed, it was last week, has made another push for Machinima, trying to get at that with a higher profile, and putting in more updates and fixes and additions to the Machinima aspects of the Omniverse platform. So I'm really glad to see that.
I'm not surprised in that, Ricky, because I think really, as you know, our show is evidence of, really, we're seeing more and more content coming out, so it makes sense for them to be part of that story, I think. Anyway, secondly, throughout September, John MacInnes is running his second real-time movie contest for Unreal Engine 5 users. This time he's providing all the scenes. So last time, if you remember, he provided all the characters. And what you need to do for the contest is create a mood scene with it. Now, I had the chance to catch up with him during August, and there's an interview with John all about the contest on our YouTube channel, and he's got a Discord server where he's also doing updates. So watch our interview with him. He's quite forthcoming on what he's expecting and how he's expecting the moods to be integrated into the movie that he's going to be making with the scenes that he's using. So that's really worth getting involved with.
What does he mean by mood? Can you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, he makes reference to something called mise en scene. He said it used to be called mise en scene, and it's basically, I think, lighting, soundscape. I'm not too sure quite what he wants in terms of bless you, in terms of
thank you,
whether there's character in the scene or not. But he's basically expecting something interesting through the capture of that scene. So he's giving you all the assets, and you've just got to do something interesting with it.
So it's not a mood in terms of, say, it's a somber mood or a happy mood or anything like that.
You can do with them what you like.
Okay.
I think he's really open to ideas. And like I said, he's provided all the assets for you to do it. It's just a case of what you do with it. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what comes of it. And he's got a really fascinating judges panel as well on on the actual the contest, including some of the guys that were winners from last year's contest. So it's definitely going to be an intriguing one to watch. What I was going to say before you sort of said that, somebody on the Discord server asked me, do I, I need to create my own scene and what have you, and I said, well, actually you don't, because he is literally providing you with everything. So it's how you film it, I think, how you create
the story you come up with, and the how you actually shoot it. Cool.
Yeah, how you shoot it is about right. And then thirdly, there's a nice little sizzle reel for Unreal's Better Light Than Never challenge, for which they said they received something like 400 entries. 400 entries, that's astonishing. So we'll share a link to the sizzle reel, and there's a really nice little article on atlv.com as well. So we'll put a link into the show notes about that as well. And then there's a few creative projects to take a look at, which I picked up during the course of the last few weeks. Firstly, there was a really stunning music video by Jackson Wang called Cruel, which was released on the 29th of July. It's up to about 7.5 million views at the moment. And it was made using Unreal Engine 5 and live action. It's just absolutely extraordinary quality, and the choreography in it is astonishing. It's definitely worth taking a look at how it was made as well, because he's released some videos on the virtual production side of it, as well as the film. So we'll put a couple of links in the show notes to that. It's one you've got to see. And then there's another extraordinary film using Unreal Engine 5 called Coherence by Sagans, and that was released on the 3rd of June. And this one is using a style transfer applied by Disco Fusion. Also one definitely worth looking at. I did toy with whether we should review that one, but I had so many options this month. I decided that I'd cover this one in news, but it's definitely worth a look.
Good.
And then technical updates for you. There's a nice looking mid-poly module desert kit that's been released, which has lots of assets you can use and modify all for free. And it's been created by Pavel Oliva, and we'll put a link in the show notes to that. There's a really nice tutorial by Game Art Experiments, which shows you how to turn an AI generated image into a 3D format. And the AI images that he's talking about are using MidJourney. And there's
which is awesome, by the way. It's awesome.
Absolutely incredible. I've got the links. I haven't had a play yet.
Oh, you should.
I can't wait to have a go with it.
Yeah.
There's also a version of the process that he's put this tutorial out for using Blender, which makes pretty much the whole process free workflow as well. So definitely have a look at that when you get a chance.
Excellent.
And then finally, in 3D avatars can now be turned into character creator for avatars because they have hooked up with Reallusion. So you can create highly customized content based on real people without necessarily the animation challenges. Now they look a little bit plastic. They're not quite like the metahumans that we're seeing in terms of what they're doing, but they're not bad. And what In3D does is it uses a scanning tool that you have, I think, on your mobile phone. It takes a whole body scan, and the tutorial sort of shows you how to drag it into character creator for.
Right.
So it's quite a neat one to have a look at. And again, we'll put a link in the show notes for you. And that's it for me this month.
Good Lord, Tracy, you're amazing. You come up with such incredible news. Thank you. Damien, what kind of interesting machinima news have you found?
I found three things. I'll start with, it was something I briefly considered as my film selection, but it's actually just a teaser trailer. So I thought, well, let's wait for the actual, the final film before we review that.
Right.
It's a fan recreation of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is a very popular video game by BioWare, released about 20 years ago. But what they're doing is they're retelling the story using Unreal 5, and the characters are created with Reallusion's character creator. And so, because obviously those 20-year-old character models are not going to be something you want to use now. So they're doing this, they're putting a whole ton of effort into it. We've covered some of the videos before, you know, some of the test videos in our reviews previously. So this is the first look at the actual series, the very first episode. They haven't put a release date on it yet, which is a little bit frustrating because I want to see what they've done with it. But I thought it's worth mentioning because it's telling a video game story in a completely new engine, but still using machinima techniques.
Right.
So I'm very interested to see what happens with that.
I
we'll
am
have
too.
a link, and we'll have a link in the show notes for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And,
game had such a great story. And actually, I bought it, you know, when it came out, and then tried to introduce it to my son a couple years ago. First of all, it was challenging to get it to run on modern hardware, but then, yeah, boy, the graphics they didn't hold up too great. So I'm very excited because it's a really good story through the course of that game. Enjoyed it very much.
Well, yeah, well, I went up with the game. I came home, started playing, and suddenly it's 12 hours later. So,
Oh, 12
Yeah,
hours.
it's an absorbing game. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's my first piece of news. And when we get more updates on that film,
Nice.
we'll talk about it again.
Okay.
The next thing was, it's not necessarily machinima related, but it might be because the details of it are still kind of vague at the moment. But DreamWorks are going to use they're going to release their Moonray rendering platform as open source. And until they actually do that and people have a good look at it, I don't know how it's going to apply to machinima. But in theory, you could probably export your iClone scene and render it in Moonray.
Exactly. Also, Blender. There's no question in my mind that the Blender community is going to grab that one as soon as possible. I suspect in a future update, they'll be integrating that Moonray render because it's a terrific renderer. They rendered, gosh, I can't remember the names of the animated films they did, but they're just gorgeous films. And so it's a polished and beautiful renderer.
I look forward to giving it a try myself if I can.
Yeah.
Is
And
that
then
going to give Omniverse a run for its money then? Is that what you're thinking?
It might. It might.
Because
It's
I mean,
good.
I just,
Yeah.
you know, my thinking here is Omniverse really, by making it tied to, you know, the RTX and, you know, the supply of those still being a challenge, is basically shooting itself a little bit in the foot and allowing this sort of stuff to come in and take over. But I mean, what are the, you know, what are the platforms that you can run on what kinds of computer?
Yeah.
And this to me seems like a more viable option for those that get stuck in that supply.
I agree with you, but I
issue.
think Nvidia has a longer view.
Okay.
I think they're looking ahead because right now there was a dip of about 3 months in prices where they were almost cut in half for the RTXs, and any serious gamer is going to have an RTX card now.
Right.
And since the gaming community is drawn into machinima, I think they're looking further down the road when this issue of card supply is going to be relatively minor. So I think they have a longer view of it. But the thing about the Moonray is becoming open source. It's going to allow, like I said, people like Blender and other organizations to get that code. And since they have a strong fan base and strong consumer base, they're going to be able to turn that code immediately into working with their program. So I think that's a very good thing. And it's part of a trend that we've been seeing in the last 5 or 6 years where open source isn't, the idea of open source isn't that it's just low class, that it's actually going to help. It's there's a feedback loop where they're giving away stuff and customers are coming back to them. So they're being smart about that whole consumer cycle. And also the open source organization that promotes it has been doing a really good job of getting it out there that open source is a good thing, that it's not just junk, you know.
There's the other element of Nvidia Omniverse is being made to be something that is fairly easy to learn. I don't know how complicated Moonray is to use. I suspect because it's being used on such a professional level, it's not going to have that ease of use where you can just sit down with it and have something rendered or made within half an hour to an hour. Even if it's just, you know, a simple scene with some cubes running around, moving around, is your little test project. I feel like Moonray is probably going to be something you have to spend more time with to learn.
But remember, the code is open source, which
True.
means smart coders are going to be able to reintegrate. They're going to be able to create an interface. A graphic interface is going to be much easier to use than the pro level end that they're using at Dreamworks.
Yeah,
That's
look
true.
at what
So-
look at what Blender did to itself
Yes.
when it remade itself, and anything's possible there, I think.
We'll have to
I think
keep an eye
you're
on and see
right.
what happens.
I think you're right. The initial version of it might be somewhat complex, but I think down the line, coders are going to see that and go, no, we can't do that. Let's do it in a more simplified version. But
Yeah.
that's a good point.
All right, and the third piece of news is more of a heads up. There's something that's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. It's on the September the 19th to the 20th is the Nvidia GTC conference. And I've been told that there's going to be more news about Nvidia Omniverse, new reveals and things that's going to happen there.
Great.
So, you know, if you're using Omniverse and want to learn more about it, keep an eye on that event. I imagine it's all going to be streamed. So you can just, you know, watch it from home and in your comfort of your home and see what they're going to announce. So that's worth keeping an eye on.
Very good. I've attended the GTC conference several times, and it's a fantastic conference. Easily rivals SIGGRAPH, and it's more accessible than SIGGRAPH. SIGGRAPH has grown. It's like Comic-Con. It's so big. One day isn't enough to really grasp it. And even if you spend the whole time there, you've only got one little path that you've found. There are innumerable paths that you could follow in it. So great. I'm so glad that they're streaming that live. It's well worth your time as a machinima filmmaker or a creator to look through GTC. They're at the forefront of promoting machinima and making machinima an important part of artistic creation.
Well, that's me done for this month.
Thank you very much, Damien. Phil, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I've just got a quick bit of news, kind of sad, but not entirely depressing. But the website filmmusic.io, which is where Kevin MacLeod hosts all of his music, where I had have mine as well. That site was founded a few years ago, and basically the idea of it was that for artists, you know, like me, that we would offer the base of our soundtrack music, essentially, available for Creative Commons use. But then there was the ability for someone to purchase an extended license if they wanted to, say, use it for commercial purposes or use it in some way other than the already pretty generous Creative Commons license. And Sasha, who is the guy who's been running that site out of Germany, just over the past 12 to 18 months in particular, there have been some changes in regulation, tax related in particular, where it just made it infeasible for him to continue to pay out to handle the collection of those fees for extended licenses and then pay them out to the artists without there being a lot of bureaucratic meddling. And
Too bad.
he's already running the site basically on a zero profit basis, and this just made it where it just wasn't feasible to continue doing that. But rather than just shut down the site completely, he's basically just, now it's purely just Creative Commons. And he reached out to all of us who have our music there and said, hey, if you obviously don't want to continue, just let me know. I'll take your stuff down, but we're going to go just all Creative Commons, and you can put wording in your bio or whatever that if people want to do an extended license, they need to contact you and negotiate that directly. So anyway, it's unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world for sure. And that site is still a great location to, if you're looking for a piece of music to use in an online video on YouTube and whatnot. It's got some of the most generous licensing available, and a wide variety. The catalog is very diverse. You can search it by genre or by a particular artist. And again, Kevin MacLeod has his music over there. I want to say north of 1,000 songs, maybe even significantly more than that. And there's at least a dozen other music artists over there. So it's filmmusic.io. So that's the change that happened there.
Well, that's
all
good
I've
news
got.
and bad news. Good
Yeah.
news and bad news. Good news is for machinima filmmakers is that filmmusic.io is a great source to go for finding music for your machinima film. The bad news is that content creators such as yourself are not going to be able to get anything back from your efforts. But I
Yeah.
think that was a smart move on his part, rather than dissolve the site entirely, turn it into Creative Commons. Now, for those of you who don't know about Creative Commons, usually there's several levels of Creative Commons, but usually the Creative Commons is attribution, meaning that you have to give credit to the composer of the music and also the link to filmmusic.io or whatever link that the creator provides in the credits. So don't forget, if you use music from that site, you need to, and it's Creative Commons, you need to give credit to the composer in your credits. I mean, that's a natural thing to do, but
Yep.
I think it still should be stated anyway. Thank you.
And you
for
don't
that.
have to put it in the film itself, by the way. It's nice if you do, if you credit the music artist, but you don't have to. It's just got to be in the, like somewhere in the description area of the YouTube video. And when you download a piece of music there, it gives you all the instructions, and copy paste. You can take the info and, put it into your video. So yeah, it's a neat site, and I'm glad he's continuing it. Now he's doing it basically just at his own expense. I'm not sure what hosting costs are involved for a site like that, but it's not zero.
Yeah.
He does accept donations there, and which is great, because that's what'll keep the lights on for him. So.
And it's still there.
Do you hear that, machinima filmmakers? If you use 3 or 4 pieces from film music, drop them $5.
Yeah.
It'll help them out, and it's the good thing to do. You'll feel good.
He's a really good guy, Sasha, and a very talented musician himself. He's got his own music on there as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Keith. I've only had 3 short things that I wanted to share with you all. This is Omniverse related. Audio2Face had an update 2022.1, which includes the most important update for it is it includes emotion sliders, where you can give the face, the standard face that you're animating, that you're creating, and certain emotions. Now they're broad emotions: anger, fear, grief, things like that. They also gave the model eyeballs, because it didn't have eyeballs before. So now you can see blinks. You can control blinks for it. One of the interesting things that you can do with it is you can actually create an emotional, there's an AI element in it, and you can actually allow the program to determine the emotional state from the audio that you provide. And the results, I think, of course, I haven't seen enough to really come up with a solid opinion, but they're satisfactory, I think. They're okay. Especially, I mean, and perhaps in a close-up, you might have to be choosy about it, but certainly in a medium shot or a wide shot, they're just fine. They're just perfect for it. The program is basically sliders, and then click a check mark a box, put in your WAV file, and it'll automatically determine it. You can further adjust it using the sliders after you've had the AI decide on what emotion it is. So I think it's an interesting addition to it. Since it connects with Reallusion, the workflow could be character creator, create a character, bring it into Audio2Face, do the emotional thing, re-export it using the USD .usd format back into iClone, and then you've got a character. I suspect that's the kind of thing that would take maybe a half an hour, maybe an hour to put together. So that's something you might want to look into, Damien, or anybody else who wants to use iClone and or even Unity to do character creation. So it's a really good update. And I think that it shows that their Nvidia Omniverse team is back making decisions and adding quality of life updates to the program. So we'll have a link to that in there. You definitely should check it out. It's pretty cool.
I did see the little trailer for that in the SIGGRAPH announcement. I thought that looked really impressive. I've not had a chance to sit down and try it yet, but I'm looking forward to.
Yeah,
the text to emotion is really interesting, I think, but you do have to be careful because it infers the emotion based on the words and the punctuation in the text. So you have to be a good writer.
So you could actually create some absurd things by putting in bizarre punctuations, like dash, dash, semicolon, word, comma, dash, and just see how it interprets that. That would be fun.
It'd be interesting to try saying the same thing over and over again, but in different tones to see if it can pick up on that. Ricky, that would be something you should try because you'd be so good at that.
That's good. That's good. I'll get a hold of Friedrich Kirchner and we'll start working on something weird.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. If it's taking its cues from the text, but also picking up something from the actual audio as well. Yeah, there's certain types of delivery that I would think it would be very challenging. Sarcasm.
Oh yeah. Or
How
irony.
do you do that? Or irony. That's right. Where the text does not match the intent or tone. So that would be fun to play with. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be funny to take some Shakespearean speeches and plug them in there and see what they would do. They did the in one of the videos that we linked to. There's a goofy little series of 3 sentences that they had that they used. I can't remember it. Something over the locks and queen something. But anyway, they showed different emotions saying the same lines, but then plus 10 anger, plus 10 grief, saying the same thing. And it was quite amusing. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a useful tool. And I think you should keep an eye on it. Machinima filmmakers should definitely take a look at it. I think it'll be very helpful. And even if you don't use it for your entire production, you can use it for specific scenes. Once you get the workflow down, like I said, half hour, an hour, you should be able to integrate it, no problem. Because again, it's using the .usd format, which is slowly becoming a universal format for being able to transfer assets from program to program. Blender does a USD, Unity does USD, and the whole Omniverse is USD. So definitely check that out. My next 2 pieces are short. Adobe released a comprehensive Premiere Pro guide for long-term and episodic filmmakers. Now that's the title of it. The actual, it's in the form of a wiki, which is a really good way to do it. The title of the wiki is Best Practices and Workflow Guide. That's a more succinct way of putting it. I wish they would have made that in the title. Long-term and episodic filmmakers is like, what? But workflow guide is really good. Now, the bulk of the guide is basic, a Premiere Pro workflow, how to bring documents in, how to add titles, how to do graphics. But one of the things they do is they talk about the collaborative element of being able to use Premiere, because some of the updates allow you to collaborate inside of Premiere to work on a specific project. Since Premiere Pro is such a widespread, its usage is widespread, this I think would be an interesting topic to look at. And since it's in a wiki format, you don't have to read from the beginning to the end. You can just go to the parts that are interesting to you as a filmmaker. Again, Adobe Premiere is part of their Premiere subscription only package, which is frustrating as hell. But you can, the good thing about it is that you can rent Adobe Premiere separately from anything else. I think it's like $9.95 a month. So that makes it much less onerous than the $55 you're gonna have to pay for the whole package of stuff. So it's a good document. I find it Adobe Premiere not as intuitive as DaVinci Resolve. I think DaVinci Resolve is a better program for editing package for beginning filmmakers and medium level filmmakers because it's just so simple and clear and it's free.
Which is
and
weird,
also-
by the way, because it has a reputation of being difficult, but I did not find it that way at all. Now I'm not a newbie, of course, but I've used the same thing, Vegas, for decades. And so I was really, based on reputation and from people that I know even saying, oh, that's a tough one. No, it's not. It's just different. And if you just embrace the paradigm that they've built the modules on, it is way more intuitive than Vegas. And Premiere I've only dabbled with. But yeah, if you've heard that and have shied away from DaVinci, don't. It's not that hard. And it's extremely powerful.
and free.
That's the important
you.
bit.
Thank you that. So, and although there isn't a document like the workflow guide to Premiere for DaVinci Resolve, there are innumerable YouTube DaVinci Resolve gurus
Yes.
that have complete guides for the beginners for DaVinci Resolve. But I do think if you like Adobe Premiere, this is a document you should take a look at. And if you're making short form series, this is a really good way to bone up and clear up your workflow. So that's it for Adobe. It's really good. And the last item I have is a sort of fun item that I wanted to share with you. It's in Second Life, somebody has gotten together, a group of people gotten together, and they've created Lynch-land. And it's a sim that's devoted to the art and characters of David Lynch in Second Life. New World, Wagner James Au reported on the premiere party a few weeks ago, which I couldn't attend, but gosh, it sounds like it was a lot of fun. They have a Flickr collection that will put a note in of all of the pictures that were taken during the premiere, and also covering a lot of aspects of the sim. Now, if you want to film there, you probably need to get permission. I suspect that they will allow filmmaking. I don't know for sure, but I suspect they will, but you have to get permission. But it just looks fascinating, especially if you love the work of David Lynch. We'll put a link in there for you to visit it, and all you Second Life
I bet that's just wonderfully strange.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Second Life is a perfect platform for David Lynch. I'm surprised he hasn't jumped in on it. So they have a brief interview. Wagner James Au has a brief interview with the people who put it together, and it looks really cool. I can't wait to check it out myself. So with that, I think we've covered the news for this month. Just a note to everybody, we probably are going to be changing the format next month of our news. We're going to be moving the news to a website blog only. We will include our comments on the news articles, and if important news come up, we will discuss it here between ourselves. But primarily, we're going to be moving it to our blog at completelymachinima.com with links and everything. And then we'll also be moving the films section to each individual film will have an episode of its own. We'll be releasing those every Thursday. That's not next month, but the month after. That would be October, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, October. So be aware that we're going to be changing the format. Give us some feedback if you like that idea and you want us to keep going with it. Also, if there's any news that you have that you think we should cover, please contact us at talk@completelymachinima.com. Also, any ideas that you have or comments on the news or films that we're covering, we'd love to hear from you. And films, if you've created a film and you think it's worth our time to look at, send it along. We'll we have a film coming up that somebody did just that we're going to be talking about in our film section. So that's it for the news this month. Thank you very much. And thank you, my friends, for sharing the news with me. And we'll see you the next time, in which we'll be talking about machinima films. So that's it. Over and out. Bye-bye.
Bye. You look like a rogues gallery.
Oh, yeah.